My family kicked me out during Christmas dinner. We've all decided you should leave and never come back, my sister said. I just smiled. Okay then. I guess you won't be needing this. Then I tore up an envelope and walked out. When they saw what I'd destroyed, they started screaming. Technically, I didn't even get to finish my meal. There was still mashed potato on my plate, and I'm pretty sure Derek, my sister's boyfriend who lives with us now and treats the dining table like a food court, was halfway through a second helping when it happened. My fork was midair. Eliza had just finished some long-winded story about how she saved Christmas by booking a last-minute replacement turkey, even though I was the one who brined it, prepped it, and roasted the damn thing. And then she dropped it. The line, like she'd been waiting all evening for the right moment to toss the grenade. We've all decided you should leave, she said, sipping wine like she was on an episode of Real Housewives of Passive-Aggressive Suburbs. And not come back. Just like that. One sentence. Well rehearsed. I blinked. Once. Twice. My mom cleared her throat but didn't speak. My dad didn't even look up. Derek suddenly looked very interested in his gravy, like it was the most fascinating substance on earth. So I asked calmly, "What?" And Eliza repeated it, slower this time. Like I was slow. We've all decided. It's time you moved out. For good. No one corrected her. No one said, "Hold on, that's not what we talked about." Because they had talked about it. All of them. Without me. I guess family meetings don't require the full cast anymore. I looked at each of them in turn. My mom, twisting her napkin. My dad cutting food he wasn't eating. Eliza, smug as hell in a white knit sweater that would have looked cozy if it didn't belong to the villain. And Derek, sweet, useless Derek, chewing like someone trying to disappear behind a dinner roll. Something in my chest cracked. But instead of falling apart, I reached into the inside pocket of my hoodie. I'd brought it in right before dinner. Almost forgot it upstairs. Stupid, really. I had planned to wait until after dessert. I had rehearsed a little speech in my head, something casual but heartfelt. But now, I pulled out the envelope. It was thick, cream-colored. I'd sealed it with a gold sticker like a total sap. I held it up. Okay then, I said, smiling so wide my face hurt. I guess you won't be needing this. And I tore it. There was a moment, a beat, where no one moved. Just the sound of paper splitting. That soft, delicate tear that feels too quiet for what it means. Then I dropped it on the table. 2 perfect halves. Right on top of Derek's third roll. I walked around the table, grabbed my coat off the back of the chair, and started toward the stairs. It took about 4 seconds before Eliza shouted, "Wait! What was that?" But I didn't stop. I was already walking up the stairs, past the gallery wall of family photos I'm barely in, past the framed portrait in the hallway where I'm somehow blurry despite standing still. I started grabbing things. A backpack, my phone charger, toothbrush, socks. I didn't even fold my clothes, just shoved them into the bag in a panic sweep. Downstairs, I could hear voices rising. Eliza was panicking. My mom's voice kept saying something about timing, and couldn't she have waited? My dad finally spoke, I think. Or maybe it was Derek. Hard to tell. Half the time they all sound the same when they're scrambling to reverse a bad idea. I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and looked around my room one last time. The twin bed. The dent in the wall from when I tripped over my laundry basket. The bookshelf that still had my 7th grade spelling bee trophy on it, even though no one ever mentioned it again after Eliza won regionals the year after. I didn't say goodbye. I walked down the stairs slowly, taking in the noise, the realization starting to hit them. When I passed the dining room, I didn't stop. I didn't look at their faces. I didn't gloat. I just opened the door, stepped into the cold, and shut it behind me. They didn't come after me. Not at first. But they would. Eventually, they'd piece it together. They'd remember what today was supposed to be. They'd realize what I had been planning, what they threw away. It wasn't just a letter. It was something that could have changed everything. It's a weird thing, packing a bag in your own house like you're some kind of intruder. Worse when you realize no one stopped you. No one asked where you were going. They just let you go. It wasn't always like this. I mean, okay, maybe it kind of was. But I didn't notice how bad it was until I got older and realized that not everyone's childhood felt like living in someone else's highlight reel. Eliza was the golden child before she could even walk. It's like the sun shined a little harder on her side of the crib. People used to joke about it at family parties. "You'll have to watch out for this one," they'd say, tousling her hair while I sat nearby, unbothered and entirely unseen, like the family ficus. And to be fair, Eliza was charming. She had that thing, that glossy magazine ad energy that made grown-ups want to hand her things. Teachers loved her. Neighbors complimented her posture. She got awards for participating and trophies just for smiling. Meanwhile, I once got a laminated certificate that said "good effort" after a group project, and even then, I had to share it with 2 other kids. Our mom treated Eliza like a miniature version of herself, like some second draft she was finally getting right. They'd go shopping together, sit in the kitchen, and talk about woman things while I cleaned up after dinner. I once heard my mom say, "You're the only one who really understands me," to Eliza. I was 12. In the next room. Our dad mostly stayed out of it. I think he thought being neutral meant being absent. As long as the bills were paid and no one was crying, he figured everything was fine. And then there was Aunt Margaret. She wasn't actually anyone's aunt, not by blood. She was our mom's godmother, technically. But we all called her Aunt Margaret because it made things simpler, and also because calling her the family lottery ticket felt too obvious. She was old money, like actual old money. Big house, no kids, pearls before noon kind of old money. She lived alone, wore elegant clothes with pockets deep enough to hold both hands and a grudge, and never showed up without a perfectly wrapped gift and at least one sharp comment about someone's shoes. The family always said she had no one. No husband, no children, no siblings. Just us. And by us, they mostly meant Eliza. Eliza started visiting her when she was still in high school, weekend lunches, spa days. She'd come home with little boxes from Aunt Margaret, earrings, scarves, once even a tablet for studying. My mom encouraged it, of course, called it bonding, said Eliza was doing a good thing by keeping the poor woman company. I didn't go as often. Not because I wasn't invited, but because no one ever expected me to. I'd tag along once in a while, usually if Eliza was busy or Aunt Margaret asked specifically. We'd sit in her sunroom and talk about books, or weird news stories, or how her garden was being murdered by squirrels. I liked her. She didn't ask too many questions, and she never told me how to sit, or what to wear, or why I wasn't doing more with my life. She was cool. A little intimidating, but kind in her own way. When I turned 18, she gave me a fountain pen and said, "Every girl should have something beautiful that no one else touches." I still have it. Never used it. Anyway, you can probably guess where this is going. Aunt Margaret passed away a few months ago. Peacefully, in her sleep, according to the voicemail. Eliza was the one who got the call. I found out over group text. She'd been sick, apparently. Not that anyone told me, but the family wasn't devastated. Not really. They were polite about it, reserved. The way people are when they're sad about a delay, not a death. Because everyone knew what came next. The will. They held it in Aunt Margaret's lawyer's office. A sleek little firm downtown with uncomfortable chairs and free mints. Eliza dressed like she was attending a brunch with royalty. My mom wore pearls. My dad wore a suit for the first time since my high school graduation. Derek was there too, which was bold considering he's not legally tied to anyone in this family except by shared leftovers. I wore jeans. We all sat there while some paralegal handed out bottled water, and the lawyer, a stiff man named Harland, opened a leather folder and cleared his throat like he was about to sing the national anthem. And then he read it. The will. Everything. The house, the accounts, the car, the jewelry, the investments. All of it went to me. Not split. Not shared. Just me. There was a silence in that room that I will remember until the day I die. Eliza blinked like she was glitching. My mom's mouth opened and didn't close. My dad made a sound I can only describe as a soft reboot, and Derek, bless his heart, said, "Wait, her?" Harlan didn't flinch, just turned the page and kept reading. The rest of it was standard stuff. Donations to a library, instructions for the burial, notes about the estate sale. But none of it mattered, not after that first page. Afterward, we stood in the parking lot in silence. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I was still trying to figure out if it was a mistake, a cruel joke, a misprint. Eliza broke the silence first. She didn't look at me when she said it. "What did you do?" And I just stared at her. Because I didn't know. I didn't do anything. I hadn't tried. I hadn't schemed. I hadn't even imagined being included in that will, let alone inheriting everything. I felt stunned, and then guilty, and then weirdly ashamed. They stopped talking to me after that, stopped including me in conversations. I'd come downstairs and hear silence, walk into a room and feel the temperature drop 10 degrees. It was like I'd stolen something, like I was a thief living under their roof. So I decided to fix it. I started writing the letter, the one I planned to give them on Christmas, the one I sealed with a gold sticker and tucked into my hoodie before dinner, the one I tore up. I didn't decide to share the inheritance because I'm some saint. Let's get that straight. I wasn't trying to buy love or play peacekeeper or do the right thing like it was a math problem. Honestly, I think I just didn't want to be the reason they hated me, because even though I didn't ask for it, didn't compete, didn't lobby, didn't play the game, they made it pretty clear that me getting it was enough, that I was, in their eyes, the villain. And yeah, maybe part of me still wanted to believe there was some version of us that could be salvaged, that if I showed them I wasn't greedy, wasn't like them, they'd see me differently, that maybe, deep down, they still saw me as family. So I sat on my bed for 3 nights straight writing that letter, ran the numbers, figured out a breakdown that was fair, not equal, but generous. I kept a portion to myself. Aunt Margaret did choose me after all, but the rest I divided up cleanly, a lump sum for my parents to pay off their credit cards and fix the roof they'd been complaining about for years, a decent amount for Eliza, enough to feel like a win, not enough to fund another 5 years of online boutique drama, and even a slice for Derek, because I'm either charitable or stupid and still haven't figured out which. It wasn't just a letter. It was a way out. For all of us. I sealed it in a cream envelope, added a gold sticker because apparently I was still clinging to the illusion that this would be a moment, and slid it into the inside pocket of my hoodie. I was planning to hand it to them after dinner. No speech, no drama, just a quiet gesture. But the week leading up to Christmas, things shifted. At first it was subtle. Eliza started asking weirdly specific questions, what kind of interest rate the lawyer mentioned, how liquid the assets were, whether I'd talked to a financial person yet. She asked like someone asking about your new haircut when they're really just checking to see if they still look better than you. Then it got bolder. Mom cornered me while I was folding laundry and said, "I just think it's important to remember that Margaret never would have wanted her money to tear this family apart." I nodded and said, "That's why I've kept quiet about it." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Of course. But you'll be doing the right thing, won't you? The generous thing? And I said, sure, because I was going to. I already had. But that wasn't enough. Later that same night, I overheard Dad on the phone with someone, maybe his brother, maybe the neighbor he's weirdly close with, saying, yeah, Olivia's got it all, but we'll talk some sense into her. It's family. She won't keep it like it was a given, like not giving it to them would be an act of war. By Christmas Eve, Eliza was openly leaving tabs open on my laptop with links to luxury kitchen renovations and one of those awful white and gold couches she loves. Derek spent the morning suggesting they finally turn the guest room into a studio space, which was hilarious since A, it's not their house, and B, I currently live in the guest room. They were planning around me, around my money, around a life I hadn't agreed to be part of, and I still held on to that letter, still thought, maybe if I give them this, they'll stop looking at me like I'm some thief who cracked their safe. Then Christmas Day came. The table was set for 5. Eliza insisted on doing the centerpiece this year, something with fake cranberries and twine and a pine-scented candle that smelled like a Yankee Candle store exploded. I helped cook because no one else volunteered, and I can't watch someone overcook green beans without experiencing a physical reaction. My mom didn't say thank you, but she did say the carrots were a little soft. Dinner started tense. Not unusual. No one looked at me until they did. At some point, Eliza turned to me with a smile that felt like being handed a contract and told to sign. So, she said, have you thought about how you're going to use it? The money, she added, for those playing dumb. I blinked. I'm still thinking it through. She laughed. Well, just remember who was there for her. Who kept her company all those years I said nothing. Mom chimed in. It's not about us wanting anything, sweetie. But it would be hurtful if you didn't consider everything we've done for you. I was about to answer, still gently, still calmly, when Eliza hit the gas. Honestly, she said, swirling her wine, I don't even know how Aunt Margaret ended up giving it all to you. You barely knew her. There it was, the thing they all believed but hadn't said out loud yet. You think I did something? I said slowly. No one answered. I reached into my pocket, felt the edge of the envelope. I had written that letter. I had planned this moment. I had come into this dinner still wanting peace, and they were ready to tear me apart over something I hadn't asked for, hadn't wanted really, until they made it clear I didn't deserve it. That's when Eliza said it. We've all decided you should leave and never come back. Just like that. Like I was a roommate they'd voted out of a group lease. No one corrected her. No one defended me. I reached into my hoodie and pulled out the envelope, held it in front of me. They leaned forward like dogs waiting for a treat. I smiled. Okay then, I said. I guess you won't be needing this. And I tore it. Clean, quiet, deliberate. I watched Eliza's smile collapse in real time. I dropped the pieces on the table, stood, and walked toward the stairs. They were still blinking, still trying to compute what had just happened when I reached my room and started packing. Let them scream. Let them guess. They don't know what they lost, but they will. When I left the house, the cold hit my face like a slap, but it felt cleaner than anything that had just happened inside. I was halfway down the walkway when I heard the door fly open behind me. Olivia! Eliza's voice, sharp and urgent, like I'd just dropped something she owned. I suppose they've read the letter by now, the one I tore. They would have pieced it together eventually. I didn't stop walking. Olivia, are you serious right now? You're actually leaving? I reached the sidewalk before she caught up. She was barefoot, arms crossed over that gauzy top she wore like she was starring in some indie Christmas movie where the misunderstood influencer learns the true meaning of family. You don't have to do this, she panted, trying to sound reasonable now. We were just surprised. I turned to her, slowly. Surprised that I exist? Or surprised I didn't roll over and hand it all to you with a thank you card? Her face flickered. You didn't even earn it. There it was. You barely knew her, she added. We were the ones who visited, who took care of her, who waited for her to die so you could redecorate, I said flatly. Yeah. I know the porch light clicked on. Mom stepped out, coat thrown over her shoulders. Sweetheart, she called, voice trembling. We didn't mean what we said. Eliza was just speaking for all of you, I said, loud and clear. Mom made her way down the steps, a little slower now. Look, emotions were running high, she said, but don't throw your future away over some misunderstanding. I stared at her. My future? She didn't blink. You don't know how hard the world is. You'll need us. Families fight, but we come back together. I almost laughed. You told me to pack my things and never come back. That was before we knew. She stopped herself. Before you knew what? That I had already decided to be generous? That you'd just burned the bridge that was meant to carry you? I don't need a ride, I said. I have a friend down the street. You're really just going to walk away? Eliza said, hugging herself. Like you don't owe us even a conversation? I looked at her. You made it very clear I didn't owe you a place at the table. And with that, I turned and kept walking. I didn't stop until the corner. They didn't follow. Not that night. 2 days later, they turned to extended family. The cousins, the uncles, the godmother I hadn't seen since middle school, but who now had a lot to say about respect and family obligations. Texts started rolling in, some vague. Hope you're doing okay. Heard there was some confusion, some not. You should be ashamed. Your parents sacrificed so much for you. One message from a second cousin even quoted scripture. She spelled my name wrong. I ignored all of it. My friend Ava let me crash on her couch longer than I meant to. I offered rent money. She refused. Said, "You're not here forever." Just until you remember who you are, I thought I already had. Then the knock came. 3 days after Christmas, right after sunset. I was alone. I opened the door and nearly laughed. Mom, standing there like she hadn't thrown me out less than a week ago. Hi, she said. I didn't move. You're not supposed to know where I am. Aunt Lorraine told me, she said, like that explained everything. You shouldn't have cut us off. It's not right, I stared at her. You came all this way to say that? She looked past me into the living room. We just want to understand what happened, what you were thinking. You read the letter, I said. You know what I was thinking. But why did you write it? She asked, her voice pitching upward. Why would you offer us something so generous, then take it away? Because you told me to leave. We were upset. You meant it. She exhaled sharply. Eliza is heartbroken. Eliza is embarrassed, I corrected. That's not the same thing. I started to close the door. I don't want us to end like this, she said quickly. I paused. This isn't ending. This is you getting what you wanted. She didn't move. Then I reached into my coat pocket. I got something, I said. A letter. She squinted. From Aunt Margaret, I added. Her neighbor sent it. That shut her up. I pulled it out, carefully folded, worn at the crease. I didn't hand it to her. I read it. Aloud. Olivia, by the time this reaches you, I imagine a few people are upset. That's all right. When people don't get what they expected, they often forget what they already have. I didn't leave this to you because you tried to impress me. Quite the opposite. You were the only one who never did. You showed up with your whole self. No performance, no careful smiles. You treated me like a real person, not a stepping stone. That honesty stayed with me. This inheritance isn't a reward. It's a vote of confidence. I want you to build something that's yours, something you don't have to apologize for or shrink to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You don't owe anyone a piece of it. You never did. Use it boldly, freely, joyfully. And if people don't understand, let them wonder. With love and faith in your future, Margaret. I looked up. My mom was pale. She knew who you were, I said, even when you thought she didn't. Her mouth opened, closed. I gave her a small smile. Not warm, not cruel, just done. Tell Eliza I'm not coming back. Then I closed the door, and this time, I didn't look back. 3 weeks later, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment with creaky floors and windows that stuck in the corners. But it was mine. No one else's name on the lease. No voices yelling down the hall. No footsteps outside my door that made me brace. I didn't go big. Not yet. I could have. But I wanted to take my time. To start small, and honest, and real. I bought a decent mattress. The kind you pick out for comfort, not because it was on clearance in your childhood size. My friend Ava came by and helped me hang a corkboard over the desk. I pinned one thing to it. The letter. Sometimes I reread it. Not because I need the reminder, but because it reminds me that I didn't make all this up. I really was seen, and still chosen. And that's enough to start something real. They've stopped calling. I hear through the grapevine that Eliza's rebrand flopped, Derek moved out, and my parents are keeping to themselves these days. Apparently no one wants to visit the house now. Something about the energy feeling off. I don't miss them. Not anymore. I miss who I hoped they were. But now I know better. And knowing better is the closest thing I've ever had to peace. Sometimes I still wonder if I went too far. Not the leaving, not even the silence afterward. But the letter. Was it stupid of me to write it in the first place? To believe even for a second that handing them money would make them see me differently? Or maybe it wasn't stupid. Maybe it was just the last thread of hope unraveling on paper. Either way, I tore it up. And honestly, I haven't regretted that part once. But still, what do you think? Did I do the right thing? Or was I just as naive as they said? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe for more. At a family reunion, my 7-year-old adopted daughter was told not to join the family picture because she's not real family. She cried silently all night, even with her father beside her. When I found out, I didn't shout. I did this. 3 hours later, the whole family lost it. I wasn't there when it happened. That, in itself, was the first mistake. My husband, Michael, had insisted he could manage one night without me. And I'd told myself the same comforting lie I always told when I tried to let go of control. What could possibly go wrong? Turns out, a lot. The reunion had been planned months ago. A 4-day extravaganza of family bonding, conveniently scheduled to begin on the one day I couldn't get off work. I told my parents this, thinking they'd adjust. But no, the date was set. Tradition, they said. Funny how tradition always seems to fall in my sister Rachel's favor. So Michael went ahead with our daughter, Anya. He hadn't been thrilled about it, but he agreed. He'd grown up in a polite, conflict-averse household where you never challenged the elders. You just smiled, nodded, and hoped the storm passed. I should have known that would be a problem. When I pulled into the venue parking lot the next morning, suitcase bumping against my leg, I felt expectant. I'd missed the opening night, but maybe today would feel like family, The instant I saw Michael and Anya standing near the lobby, though, my stomach dropped. Michael looked like he hadn't slept. Anya clung to his hand, head down, her usual sparkle gone. "Everything okay?" I asked, forcing brightness into my voice. "Yeah, fine," Michael said, too quickly, too flat. That was the moment I knew. Something had happened. It didn't take long to corner him. I pulled him aside while Anya sat near the window, distracted by her stuffed rabbit. "Tell me," I said. He hesitated, rubbed the back of his neck. "Julia, I didn't know what to do." "Do about what?" My voice dropped an octave, cold. "There was a picture." Last night he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Everyone was gathering for the family photo." Anya ran forward, smiling. "And then your mom—" He trailed off. "My mom what?" Michael swallowed. "She told Anya, in that sweet voice of hers, that the picture was just for family. That she should stand to the side." I froze. The words didn't even process at first. Then they did. Burning hot, searing through me. Michael rushed on. "Your dad was right there." Rachel, too, with her kids Jacob and Grace. Nobody said anything. Rachel's kids even sat in the spot Anya was reaching for. And Anya, she just folded in on herself. Tried not to cry. I stared at him, disbelief curdling into fury. "And you said nothing?" His face flushed. "Julia, they're your parents. I didn't want to start a fight. I didn't think—" "You didn't think?" My voice was a razor. "She's 7. She's our daughter. You let them humiliate her." I was shocked. Everyone seemed to agree. What was I supposed to do? Take on your entire family by myself? "Yes," I hissed. "That's exactly what you were supposed to do." A silence stretched between us, sharp as glass. He looked down. I looked past him, at Anya, sitting small, her stuffed rabbit pulled tight to her chest. That was the moment my heartbreak hardened into something colder. Later at breakfast, I decided to test the waters myself. I approached the table where Mom, Dad, and Rachel sat, laughing over coffee like nothing had happened. "Is it true," I asked quietly, "that you told Anya she couldn't be in the photo?" Mom turned, her smile sugared and false. "Well, yes. We just thought the picture should be for family. She is my daughter." Rachel shrugged, as if I'd commented on the weather. Dad sipped his coffee, silent, his gaze fixed on the tablecloth. Their faces didn't waver. They didn't see the problem. The room tilted for a moment, fury threatening to swallow me whole. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to throw every plate and glass to the ground until they shattered like the image of family I'd clung to all these years. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. A thin, sharp smile. The kind that said, "Noted." Then I walked away. Anya clung to my waist when I rejoined her and Michael. I smoothed her hair back, kissed her head, forced calm into my voice. "Why don't you and Daddy go get ready for the day?" I told her. "I'll meet you soon." When they were gone, I sat down, pulled out my phone, and began typing. Not texts. Not to them. Calls, emails, cancellations. The kind of quiet, deliberate moves you only make once. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just started making a few calls. And from that moment, nothing about this reunion, or their lives, would ever be the same. They just didn't know it yet. I didn't always know what it meant to be the unfavorite. As a kid, I thought it was normal that Rachel got the bigger slice of cake, the shinier toys, the louder applause. She was the golden child, and I was what's the opposite of golden? Nickel? Rusted tin? Whatever it was, that was me. The older we got, the clearer it became. Rachel could have spilled red wine on the white carpet, and Mom would have called it charming. I could have cured cancer, and Dad would have asked why I didn't do it faster. And then Rachel had children, Jacob and Grace, 2 golden grandchildren gleaming like trophies. Meanwhile, I couldn't conceive. Years of trying, tests, heartbreak, silence. I don't think I've ever hated silence as much as I hated that one. And my family's reaction? Not pity, not sympathy, just convenience. Well, at least you don't have kids, Mom chirped once. You've got more time to help us. The others laughed like it was a joke. I laughed too, but inside, I wanted to rip my skin off. So I became the helper, the babysitter, the financial backer, the human safety net. Oh, Julia, you're so lucky you don't have children. Could you watch Jacob and Grace while Rachel rests? Oh, Julia, you're doing so well in your career. Could you help with the mortgage a little? Oh, Julia, you've got such a flexible schedule. Could you drive Mom to her appointment? Lucky, flexible, helpful. That was my title. Never mind that I was crying in bathrooms between meetings. Never mind that I was bleeding money into their bottomless pit. Never mind that all I wanted was to hold a child of my own. But of course, Rachel's children needed gymnastics lessons. Guess who paid? When I finally decided to adopt, I thought they'd at least clap politely. Adoption isn't a whim. It's a decision that comes with mountains of paperwork and oceans of hope. Instead, I got a lecture. She won't be your real daughter, Dad said flatly. It's just different, Mom added with that syrupy tone that always meant condescension disguised as concern. I corrected them calmly. She will be my daughter. But inside, I wondered if it wasn't really about blood. Maybe it was about control. Maybe they didn't want me to have a child at all. Because as long as I was childless, I was free. Free to pay. Free to help. Free to sacrifice. And free to be used. Then came Anya, 6 years old when she walked into our lives. Now 7. Bright, stubborn, already carrying the scars of being unwanted, yet still desperate to belong. The first time she called me Mom, I nearly collapsed from the weight of it. Michael and I built our world around her. Every bedtime story, every school pickup, every scraped knee kissed. But my parents? My sister? Rachel's golden children? They never let her in. At best, they were polite. At worst, they treated her like a guest overstaying her welcome. Of course we love her, Mom said once, patting Anya's head as if she were a puppy. She's just different. Different. Always that word. And still, I kept helping. Old habits die hard. Mortgage top-ups. Babysitting Jacob and Grace. Funding family activities. This reunion? Paid for by me. The venue. The catering. The shiny little extras that made everyone clap their hands and declare, "Oh, what a lovely idea!" Yes, what a lovely idea indeed. Funded by the useless daughter. But after what happened to Anya last night, the sugary exclusion, the silence, the way Rachel's children slid into the seat meant for mine, I was finished. So there I was, sitting alone in our room while Michael took Anya out for a walk. My phone in my hand, my heart pounding like a war drum, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel powerless. I scrolled through the list of bookings on my card. The venue, the entertainment, the catering. Each one neatly labeled, waiting for me. One by one, I began to cancel. Click, click, click. With every cancellation, a new silence filled the room. Not the suffocating silence of neglect, but the heavy, certain silence of justice sharpening its blade. And then I thought, why stop there? The mortgage top-ups, the automatic transfers to Jacob's extracurriculars, the payments I'd been making without a second thought because that's what good daughters did. All of it. Gone. I stared at the confirmation screen, my finger hovering above the button. I almost laughed. God, if Rachel knew she'd have to pay for her own children's hobbies, she'd faint right there in her designer boots. I pressed it. Another click. Another silence. For a moment, guilt threatened to creep in. That old, familiar guilt that had kept me leashed for years. They'll be disappointed. They'll be angry. They'll say you're selfish. And then I remembered Anya's voice, small and trembling. They told me I'm not real family. The guilt evaporated. They don't see me as family, I whispered. Then they don't deserve me as family either. My hand was steady. My voice was calm. But inside, something seismic shifted. A fault line giving way. This wasn't just rebellion. This was severance. I set the phone down, a small smile tugging at my lips. 3 hours from now, when the family marched up to the locked doors of the venue I'd canceled, they would begin to understand. But that was only the beginning, because the lifeline they'd treated as their entitlement, it was gone. And soon the phones would ring. The accusations would fly. The panic would set in. They didn't know it yet. But by the time they realized, it would be too late. 3 hours later, the phone started ringing. I was sitting with a cup of coffee while Anya sketched little flowers on the corner of a placemat when my mother's name lit up on the screen. Then Dad. Then Rachel. I didn't answer. By then, I knew exactly what was happening. They would have gathered at the venue, dressed for the big family outing. They would have marched up, tickets in hand, only to be turned away at the door. Sorry, the booking was canceled by the cardholder. I didn't need to picture it. I'd lived long enough with them to know how they'd react. Mom indignant, Rachel defensive, Dad silent. And Anya's name wouldn't have been mentioned once. I put the phone face down on the table. Anya looked up at me, wide-eyed. "Grandma?" she asked. "Yes." "Are they mad?" "They're upset," I said carefully. "But it's not your fault." She studied me, searching my face for the cracks I wasn't letting show. Finally, she leaned her head against my arm. That was all I needed to know. I'd done the right thing. The next day, the calls became louder, angrier. "You ruined everything! We're humiliated! This is unforgivable!" By afternoon, the tone had shifted. Guilt. Pleading. "We're your parents. You don't turn your back on family. Think of Rachel's children. They don't deserve this. You'll regret this when we're gone." I let most of it go unanswered, but Anya saw me press decline again and again. She saw me choose her over and over, and I could see something in her shoulders ease a little each time. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was relief. When we finally returned home after the reunion, the deeper cuts revealed themselves. The mortgage support I'd been providing stopped. The monthly payments for Jacob's lessons ended. The quiet financial safety net I'd been holding under all of them gone. That was when the panic set in. "Julia, you can't just do this. We depend on you. Julia, your sister can't manage without your help. You're tearing this family apart." Number. They had done that the moment they told my daughter she wasn't real family. One evening, I finally picked up. Rachel's voice came through, strained and broken. "You can't mean this. We're your family. You can't just walk away." I took a breath, steady and even. "You told my daughter she isn't family. That means I'm not family either." There was a silence on the other end, the kind that tells you someone has finally heard the truth, even if they'll never admit it. "I can't believe you'd do this," she whispered. "I can," I said, and ended the call. At night, as the phone buzzed with more messages and missed calls, I tucked Anya in beside me. Her small face was still uncertain, still carrying the weight of those words she'd heard. "Mom?" she whispered. Are you mad at me? Because they said... I stopped her right there. No, sweetheart. I am not mad at you. I am mad at them, and I'm not going to let them hurt you again. Her eyes filled, but she nodded. She believed me. And for the first time since this reunion began, she fell asleep quickly. I lay awake a long time after, staring at the ceiling. The phone buzzed again and again on the nightstand, but I didn't reach for it. Let them call. They didn't know it yet, but their family, the family that had excluded my daughter, no longer existed. They showed up with a cake, chocolate, with frosting already sagging in the heat, the kind Rachel would never bake herself, which meant it came from the overpriced bakery down the street, a peace offering with a price tag. Julia, Mom began, her smile stretched too wide. We just wanted to talk. Behind her, Dad looked stiff and uncomfortable, and Rachel, perfect Rachel, held the cake like she was presenting a prize at a raffle. Funny, I said, leaning against the doorframe. You brought dessert. Did you think sugar cancels cruelty? Rachel flushed. That's not fair. We came here in good faith. I raised an eyebrow. Did you? Anya appeared in the hallway, rabbit in hand. Her little face was pale, wary. She didn't say a word, just pressed herself against my side. Mom bent down, pitching her voice sugary sweet. Oh, Anya, darling, we're so sorry. Of course you're family. Just not blood, but still family. Anya's hand tightened in mine. I crouched, brushing her hair back. Why don't you go play in the living room, sweetheart? I'll be there soon. She hesitated, then obeyed, rabbit dragging along the floor. I stood and looked back at the trio on my doorstep. You should have stopped talking while you were ahead. Dad sighed. Julia, don't be like this. We came to make peace. Peace, I repeated flatly. Is that what you call this? We just want things to go back to the way they were, Rachel said quickly, almost desperately. Before all this tension. Before Anya, you mean. Her mouth snapped shut, but the silence spoke louder than any denial, and then it slipped. Mom's voice sharpened as if she couldn't help herself. Everything was fine before. You had a place. You helped us. You helped Rachel with her children. We all relied on you. Why wasn't that enough? There it was. The truth they'd hidden behind tradition and obligation, tumbling out by accident. I let the silence stretch. Enough? I said finally. My voice was low, sharp. You think my life was enough because I served you? Because I babysat Rachel's children, paid your bills, and pretended that filled the hole in my chest? Rachel looked down, cheeks burning. Mom pressed her lips together, realizing too late what she'd admitted. But they didn't stop. They never did. Dad muttered, We accepted your life as it was. You couldn't have children. That was how it was meant to be. But then you went and forced it. You changed everything. I stared at him, the words ringing in my ears. Forced it. He went on, oblivious. You brought in someone from outside, and now nothing is the same. Julia, you have to admit, things were smoother before. Smoother. Useful. Predictable. They didn't have to say the word mistake. It was in every pause, every glance at the sweating cake on my porch rail. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so painfully clear. You never saw me as my own person, I said. My voice shook at first, then steadied. You twisted nature, twisted tradition, whatever suited you, just to keep me in my place. You never cared about my happiness, only about my usefulness. And when I stopped being useful, when I dared to claim a life of my own, you couldn't stand it. Rachel flinched. That's not true. Yes, it is, I shot back. You wanted me childless because it kept me available. And now you can't stand that I have a daughter. Not because she's adopted, not because she's not blood, but because she's mine. And that means I don't belong to you anymore. Mom bristled, voice cracking. You're choosing her over us? Yes, I said, without hesitation. Every time. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Rachel's eyes filled with tears, but not for me, for herself. You can't mean this. You'll regret it. I stepped back and put my hand on the door. Leave. Now Dad's jaw tightened. Julia. Or I call security. For a moment I thought they'd push past me, but then Rachel set the cake on the porch railing with shaking hands. They turned and walked away, their figures shrinking with each step. I closed the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding. Anya was waiting in the hallway, clutching her rabbit so tightly her knuckles were white. Mom, she whispered, am I the reason you lost your family? The words pierced me deeper than anything my parents had said. I knelt, taking her face in my hands. No, sweetheart. You're the reason I finally found one. Her eyes shimmered. Really? Really. I kissed her forehead. You didn't take anything from me. You gave me everything. She buried her face against me, trembling. I held her, one hand stroking her hair, until the tension in her small shoulders began to ease. Behind us, Michael stood silently, eyes damp. For once, he didn't try to make peace. He just nodded, as if to say, I understand now. A year later, everything looked different. Not dramatic, not flashy, just lighter. My house felt bigger without the weight of obligation pressing against its walls. My calendar was my own. My money went toward things that mattered. Trips with Anya, weekend ice cream runs, a spontaneous day at the zoo where she laughed so hard she nearly fell over. She no longer asked, am I really your family? That question vanished like smoke once she understood the truth. She was mine. Entirely, unquestionably mine. And the rest of them? I didn't hear from my parents directly anymore. I'd blocked their numbers. But word travels. A cousin mentioned seeing Mom at the grocery store, working part-time stocking shelves. Dad had taken up a shift at the hardware store. Retirement didn't last without the extra money I'd been funneling in. Rachel's perfect facade cracked too. Jacob had to quit his expensive lessons, the ones I'd quietly funded. Grace, spoiled as cream, had to trade private activities for the local community center. I heard Rachel complaining once, her voice rising through the grapevine. Julia abandoned us. She ruined everything, Number. I hadn't ruined anything. I'd simply stopped propping it up. It used to haunt me. The why I was never enough. Why every success disappeared in Rachel's shadow. Why my parents' love felt like a ration I was never entitled to. Now I knew. I was never meant to be enough. I was meant to be useful. To orbit Rachel like she was the sun. To shine only by reflection. That was my assigned role. Until Anya. She broke their system just by existing. She gave me a world of my own. A life where I was the center of someone's orbit, and she was the center of mine. That's why they hated her. That's why they wanted her erased. And that's why I'll never let them near her again. Last weekend, Anya and I sat in the park, snapping selfies on her little tablet. Her grin was missing a tooth, her hair messy, her eyes shining like she'd swallowed the sun. I saved the picture, printed it, stuck it on our fridge. This is our picture now, and nobody gets cropped out. Do you think I went too far or not far enough? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.